Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's AFA Care Connection webinar. My name is Susan Shipman, and I am a social worker here at the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge all the caregivers today. This is National Caregiving Month, and unlike many chronic diseases, caregivers of people with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias don't always receive thanks due to the nature of the illness. So we here at AFA want to be sure to thank all of you, professional, family, and friends, caregivers, for all you do every day and for taking the time to attend this webinar. The topic for today is the growing case for music in dementia care. We're very glad to welcome as our guest speaker, Justin Russo, Director of Programming at the Institute for Music and Neurologic Function. Justin is going to give us a practical session for all caregivers on using personalized music to support people living with dementia at home and in care settings. But before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping issues. All the lines are muted, but we encourage any questions, so please put them in the Q&A box to the left. If there's time, we'll have questions at the very end. Any questions you have for the Alzheimer's Foundation of America, please call our helpline, and I'll include that number in the wrap-up email along with your certificate of attendance. Also, Justin has very generously offered to provide a copy of his presentation today for all of you. All of that said, let's get started. As I mentioned, Justin Russo is the Director of Programming at the Institute for Music and Neurologic Function, IMNF, a nonprofit dedicated to advancing the therapeutic power of music to awaken, stimulate, and heal. He oversees the Institute's training initiatives, including best practices from music therapy for using music in senior wellness and healthcare, and the Music and Memory Certification Program, which equips care professionals and family caregivers to implement personalized music as a non-pharmacological intervention for individuals living with dementia and related conditions. Since 2015, Justin has supported Music and Memory's growth to 5,800 plus certified healthcare organizations worldwide and collaborates with partners across senior care, health systems, and community programs to scale evidence-informed music engagement that improves connection, mood, and quality of life. And now I'll turn the talk over to Justin Russo. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you, Susan. It's great to be here. Hello, everybody. So this is the growing case for music in dementia care. So if you've spent time caring for a loved one, chances are you already know about the healing power of music. You've seen how naturally it shows up during daily routines, perhaps in quiet moments, and how it can shift the mood of a room, right? Bring comfort and often put a smile on someone's face. Music is familiar. It can be grounding and often deeply uplifting. But today I wanted to invite you to think about music not just as background or entertainment, but as a powerful therapeutic tool. In this session, we're going to explore what happens when we use music intentionally with purpose, structure, and personalization, and how doing so can make a measurable impact on mood, memory, behavior, and even caregiver well-being. So I'll share some research findings, some real-world case examples, and practical tools, especially that you can start using right away. And the important thing here is, older adults, especially those living with dementia or cognitive impairment, for them, music isn't just a nice extra. It can actually be a lifeline, one that reconnects, calms, and brings joy in profound ways. So let's get started. So hopefully by the end of today's session, you'll have a better understanding of the difference between using music recreationally for entertainment and using it therapeutically to achieve specific outcomes. We're going to talk a lot about the benefits for older adults, especially older adults with dementia. And we're going to talk a lot about favorite music and why that matters. Again, along the way, I'll share some practical tools and techniques that you can use right away in daily care routines. And then I'll also talk about the impact of music engagement, how to look at tracking the impact and why it matters, especially in residential care. And I'll also talk a little bit about what's happening in the space and how we're finally seeing some change in how music is viewed in terms of care for older adults. Again, this is me. Um, I come from the Institute for Music and Neurologic Function. We're located in Mount Vernon, New York. If you're not familiar with the Institute, maybe you have heard of Music and Memory, our flagship program. Music and Memory has been around since 2010. And a movie, Alive Inside, the story of Music and Memory, was made about the organization in 2014, which brought Music and Memory into the national spotlight. And in fact, I want to start today's presentation with a clip from the film Alive Inside. This is called Henry's Story. This video in particular has been viewed over 22 million times around the world. It is a great example of how favorite music can trigger cognition and support an older adult with dementia. Let's take a closer look.
I have one resident that barely opened her eyes. She didn't respond. As much as I tried, I knew her for 2 years. No matter what I tried, massage wouldn't work, nothing worked. So when we got introduced to the iPods and the family told me the things that she liked, it was amazing once we put the iPod on her. She started shaking her feet. She started moving her head. Her son was just amazed. Okay, can we stop? Because now I'm getting OR. I'm seeing her all over again.
We really want to learn what music someone's going to really recognize and enjoy.
One of the residents is a resident who likes gospel music. Church was all his life. And I think that we can start with him.
Henry, speak to me. I want to hear your voice. Can you talk to me? So let me hear you. Tell me your full name.
Henry has dementia and he needs total assistance with all his activities of daily living.
Hi, Papa. Hi, Papa.
Huh?
How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm fine. Wait.
Who am I?
Huh?
Who am I? I'm your daughter.
Daughter?
Mm-hmm. Which one?
Wait a minute. I got so many. I don't know. God
You
knows.
got so many?
Yes.
Maybe granddaughters.
Well, that's what I mean. Now, this, I don't.
Okay, it's Cherry. How long has he been in the nursing home? Approximately 10 years. It affects me greatly because he was always, fun-loving, singing, every occasion he would come out with a song. I remember as a child, he used to walk us down the street, me and my brother, and he would stop and do Singing in the Rain. He would have us jumping and swinging around poles. He was, he was good. He was always into music, always loved singing, dancing.
You want your music now? Let's try your music, okay? And then you tell me if it's too loud or not, okay?
Music is inseparable from emotion. So it's not just a physiological stimulus. If it works at all, it will call the whole person, the many different parts of their brain and the memories and emotions which go with it.
I'm supposed to sing with this?
You can if you like. When I first met him, he was very isolated, and he used to always sit on the unit with his head like this. He didn't really talk to much people, And then when I introduce the music to him, this is his reaction ever since.
Henry waking up did something to all of us. Everyone in the room felt it.
The philosopher Kant once called music the quickening art, and Henry is being quickened. He's being brought to life.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the music for 1 second, okay? Just to ask you a few questions. Okay?
How awake was he?
I'm gonna give it back to you.
Was he still lost in his dementia? Or had the music in some way changed that?
Henry,
Yeah.
do you like the iPod? Do you like the music you're hearing?
Yes.
Tell me about your music.
Well, I don't have none, I mean.
Ask yes or no questions. Do you like music?
Yeah, I'm crazy about music. You play beautiful music, beautiful sound.
Did
Beautiful.
Did you play music when you were did you like music when you were young?
Yes, I went to big dances and things.
What was your favorite music when you were young?
Well, I guess, well, Cab Calloway was my #1 band guy. I like it. That did the hold it, the holly, the hill, the hold it, the mill it, the
Henry,
yeah.
what was your favorite song?
Oh, I'll be home there for Christmas. Oh, you can count and plan on me with plenty of snow, mistletoe, present wrapped around your tree. Ow, Christmas Eve will carry me where that love light beam.
Henry,
Yeah,
what was the favorite part of your life? What was your favorite part of your life?
part of my life. Part of my life was riding a bicycle, grocery boy.
What'd you like about riding a bicycle?
That's where I made my money.
So in some sense, Henry has reacquired his identity for a while through the power of music.
What does music do to you?
Give me the feeling of love. No man, figure right now the world need to come into music, singing. You got beautiful music here. Beautiful, oh, lovely. And I feel the band of love, dream. The Lord came to me, made me holy. I'm a holy man. So he gave me these sounds. I'll just say, I meet you. Let me see. Rosalie, won't you love me? Rosalie, won't you be sweet and kind?
I don't know about you folks, but I could listen to Henry talk about Cab Calloway all day. He's such a remarkable guy. And what a transformation. So in the beginning of the video, Henry's more or less unresponsive. He has trouble remembering even his own daughter. But after listening to his favorite music, he can dive deep into his own personal history and talk about the things that really matter. As Dr. Sachs says in the video, he's being quickened. The music is doing that, and it's calling him back. And so you can see during that he's able to not just talk about what's going on now, but talk about things that are important to him, and talk about some of the most important parts of his life, even his childhood, which is pretty amazing. Now, what they don't show you in the video is that staff were trained to work with Henry, and in advance of this filming, staff took the time and were given tools to learn what Henry's favorites were, to understand, what some of the autobiographical favorites were for him. And that's a process that we call music detective, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But That's something that you don't see in the movie. You just see the effect. But what a remarkable effect. And this is something that that you can do with a loved one at home at any point. You know, you could work with them. You could find favorite music from their childhood, and play it to similar effect, because we all have these stored memories. We heard Henry talk about some of his favorite memories. You know, being a paper boy, a grocery boy, um, and all the moments that he spent at dances and listening and enjoying music. Those are his memories, and I know we all have those too. I certainly do, and I'll share one with you now. So I have this wonderful memory of being allowed to go to the county fair when I was 15 years old, and this is in 1990. I'm dating myself a little bit here, um, and as the picture on the screen shows, you know, this was at night, so this was a big deal. So I have this wonderful memory of walking into the fairgrounds for the first time in upstate New York, and seeing all the lights and just walking through the gates with hundreds and hundreds of other teens. Um, and I heard the lights, or sorry, I saw the lights and I heard all the different noises from the games and the rides. Um, and as I walked through, I saw in the back, maybe you've seen it before, that this big Viking ship just swinging back and forth. Um, and these kids, you know, screaming on top of it. And it was just one of those more adventurous rides. Um, and above it all was playing the song Guns N' Roses, "Sweet Child of Mine." Um, so and I'll never forget that. And every time I'm listening to classic rock radio and that song comes on, I'm right back. I'm right back there again, being 15. You know, walking through those gates, um, feeling like an adult for the first time in my life, you know, with my life really starting to open up. And it's just a wonderful, tremendous memory for me that I can return to it anytime I want just by listening to that song. And so what's happening there? Well, I'm triggering a memory from my own childhood. The music is working as an outside stimulus, right? And it's triggering the memory, and it's bringing all these wonderful memories and then the feelings that go with it. And that's what we see happening to Henry in that video. Um, and that's something that you can do for a loved one at any point. Now, so in terms of music's relationship to the brain, it's important to understand, you know, why these memories are happen this way. So one of the things that we've learned over the years is that when you're talking about music triggered memories, the area of a person's life you really want to look is their formative years, right? Roughly ages 12 to 25. And this was some of the work that was done with Henry. You know, staff are shown how to find favorite music from someone's formative years. Now, why are the teenage years so important? You know, why did that memory for me at age 15 stick for so many decades after? And why does it work for everyone? Well, this has a lot to do with what's going on in our brain at that point in our lives, right? At that point, when we're teens, neuroplasticity, or rather the degree to which our brain can respond to external stimuli, right, is at its height. So everything that we're experiencing is really embedding itself in our brains, in every single part of the brain. As you can see on the screen, all these different areas where music's really being cemented. And so, and if you've seen online, they've seen I've seen some MRI scans where you know, someone's listening to favorite music, and every part of the brain lights up when we're listening to favorite songs. Um, and again, this has a lot to do with our brain's ability to take in information, but because it's also impacting the emotional centers of our brain, it's generating emotional memory. And because it's overlapping with all that emotional memory, it tends to become far more permanent. Now, if you fast forward years later into someone's life, this has profound implications because, especially for people living with cognitive loss like dementia, you can use that same music again to trigger the brain. As we saw with Henry, if you play someone their favorite music from their teenage years, the songs that really trigger memories, you can trigger cognition again through this outside stimulus. You can trigger cognition, calling the whole person forward, allowing them for a period of time to be able to better converse and socialize and just have more access to themselves. It's a tremendous gift to give to an older adult who may have lost some of these memories, to be able to give them back and cognition as well. And again, this has a lot to do with the fact that emotional memory tends to endure. Anything that's familiar or meaningful or autobiographical, or like it was the case with me, tied to an important milestone, coming of age, this tends to make the memories far more permanent. A study was done recently on this with Spotify data. The author wanted to understand um, why the formative years mattered. What was it about this period of our lives that makes memory so important and music such a large role in that? So he studied Spotify data in the aggregate, and he was able to show that all of us predictably return to the music that captured us during our adolescence. As you can see here on the screen, peak influence is 13 and 14 roughly. But if you open that up a little bit, you could say approximately ages 12 to 25. I know that's very true for me. Um, if you're into the arts, if you're a musician or an artist, usually that period is a little bit wider. But for most of us, this is the period of our lives where we're really the music that we're listening to is just really becoming a part of our brains, and it's becoming a part of our music mojo, if you will. And I think it's amazing that this favorite music is something we capture that gets captured in our brains, and we carry it with us for our entire lives. Um, and again, for people living with dementia and the caregivers that support them, this has profound implications, right? Because we can trigger the brain and we can trigger cognition. Now, I want to stress that when you're doing this, this effect does not last forever. Generally speaking, it lasts about 45 minutes to an hour. Um, and but in that window of time, you can usually support someone's activities of daily living. You can support specific therapeutic outcomes. And this is what we teach in our training from the Institute and from Music and Memory as goals for using the music. And that's one of the things I wanted to share with you today, that there are concrete goals that you can go for with the music when you're working with someone, when you're supporting a loved one. If you can trigger their cognition with their own autobiographical music, their own favorite music playlist, you then will most likely get a window of opportunity to support an aspect of their day, right? So for example, if someone has to go to a medical appointment, if you play the music before that medical appointment, it generally makes that transitioning between environments easier for that person. If you're living with dementia, transitioning between environments can easily be overwhelming, right? Because it's hard to understand what's happening. It's hard to understand the change in real time. It's hard to understand the cues that you're being given. But when the brain is triggered, when you're in that immersive headphone environment and you're listening to the songs and your brain is being boosted by the memories, then you're better able to understand the cues that you're being given. You're better able to recognize your caregivers and to recognize the environment that you're in. So in that sense, you can support someone transitioning. And this is not just for medical appointments, but for transitioning between any environment, even if they're going to go, if you're about to go for a walk or for something like that, it can have a dramatic effect on those moments. It's also wonderful for getting ahead of distress. If someone has a history of sundowning, for example, or just going into deep agitation in the afternoon period when energy begins to wane, you can get ahead of those moments. You can get ahead of that distress by proactively offering the music. And there are a number of different outcomes you could go for during the day and support with music in this exact way through proactive and consistent application of the music. And in just a second, we're going to show a video that dives even more deeply into some of these specific concrete outcomes that you can achieve too. But suffice it to say, you can use music in a targeted, purposeful way, right? I know we're all used to using music to relax, or maybe use it to help someone get away from anxiety or mild chronic pain after the fact. But if we reverse that and think about using music proactively, we can usually we can achieve specific outcomes, including the avoidance of anxiety and distress. So this next video was produced just this year, actually, on our senior campus in Mount Vernon, New York, which is just north of New York City. The name of this video is The Power of Personalized Music in Dementia Care, and it talks specifically about 5 outcomes that you can achieve, that whether you're a family caregiver or a clinician, that you can achieve through the application of a personalized music playlist. Let's take a look.
So what separates using music as an intervention tool versus for entertainment or for relaxation is you can achieve specific outcomes when you boost someone's cognition through music-triggered memories.
We can use music of personal importance to help not only stimulate areas of the brain that is still available and functional, but enhance the stimulation of those areas so the person is able to constantly recall and constantly connect.
Just seeing how music awakens these areas of the brain, how music can connect and bring people together is amazing.
Overall, it's a great non-pharmacological approach for any type of clinical care, but it also improves their quality of life with minimal invasiveness.
So one of the important things to remember is to always use the music consistently. A consistent application of the music will yield the best results.
If that person is engaged consistently using music that is meaningful to them, that is targeted in a specific way, that has a therapeutic intent, therapeutic purpose, that skills are improved and the person does change. If a person has sleep disturbances or agitation or wandering, we know that personalized music and music that allows that person to feel comforted and safe actually allows them to sleep and have less instances of agitation.
A lot of times if you put some soothing music on, it just helps them to transition into going into sleep, you know, getting ready for bed, and it changes them, their moods.
So if you're doing this for the first time, it's important to remember to use the music proactively in advance of any activity you're trying to support. For example, if you're trying to support someone's nutrition, if you're trying to help them maintain a healthy weight, what you can do is play the music about 30 minutes before meal times. And what that will do is it will boost their cognition, and that allows them to chew, to recognize food, in some cases even swallow.
Not only are they aware that it's mealtime, but if a CNA needs to assist them in eating, that they're able to engage in that. In fact, we've seen from nutrition studies that the person actually eats more and does better.
And again, all this comes from triggering the brain in advance of the activity you're trying to support.
When music is used consistently and purposefully, that we can impact the ease at which a CNA can care for somebody, so the person is more relaxed. There's a connection that's made, and that CNA is not a threat to the individual. They're actually a partner and a friend.
Seeing how music can change the mood of a room, seeing how excited they are to be with me musically is more than I could ask for.
There's a
singing. That's just a beautiful thing.
Oh, Jim. What a gorgeous day. It makes me want to sing. Really? Oh, what a beautiful morning. You have such a beautiful voice. Oh, thank you. Oh, that feels good? More better. Thank you.
Music reduces anxiety, it improves the cognition and the ability for somebody to do something that they might have forgotten, their mind might have forgotten how to do so. And being able to provide them with music that stimulates their memory and brings them calm and brings them ease, it really helps them to feel that comfort in what could be a very gray and dark day for them and brings them light.
If you're a caregiver at home, think of music as a tool that you can use anytime to support your loved one's quality of life, creating moments of relaxation not just for your loved one, but for caregivers too. Music is a wonderful respite tool.
We encourage caregivers to find ways of using personalized music in those moments where they really need to have peace for themselves.
It's a great opportunity for you to get things done because they'll be engaged, they'll be enjoying the music, and they'll be better able to recognize cues from you and the care that you're giving them.
When we put music on, everybody comes alive. People start dancing. It just brings such joy to everybody.
Music is just universal. Even if you don't speak the language of the music, it moves you.
It puts you in the mood. It makes you feel good in your soul.
You see people join together and how that really shapes a community so that people trust each other and they can continue to build this relationship for many years to come.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that. And I hope by now you're starting to reflect upon some of the memories that you have associated with music, maybe from your own formative years, your own teenage years, or maybe you're thinking about a loved one and some of the music that they loved when they were growing up. You know, if you are a caregiver, a family caregiver, and you might ask questions like, what was our wedding song? What was some of the music that they listened to before we met? What were some of the big dances that you went to and things like that? These are all ways to solve what we call the musical favorites mystery, right? But it's all leading to the same end. The goal is to find maybe 10 or 15 songs that are really beloved and trigger memories, songs that really light a person up, right? Now, you can do this in a number of different ways with any different type of equipment. So if you're wondering what type of equipment to use, it's up to you. You can use whatever you're comfortable with or whatever your loved one is comfortable with. Usually we use headphones because they tend to be the most immersive and produce the best results because it really maximizes the listening experience over ear headphones, right? To avoid hearing aids and things like that. But sometimes the participant isn't comfortable with headphones and you need to use a Bluetooth speaker or maybe just a stereo, or maybe you just want to turn on the radio. As long as you can choose or show them some of these favorite songs, you'll get there. And once you've done that, again, you can start using it strategically to support their quality of life. And this is something that, when we're working with staff or we're working with families, this is the journey we walk together. We first show them how to find those favorite songs. And for anybody who's interested, we do have a music assessment questionnaire, and I'm happy to make that available to anybody who wants it. It basically puts all of the questions that I've been talking about together in one place. What was your wedding song? Did you like going to church? What were some of your favorite church songs? Did you sing in a choir? Were you in the military? All of the songs, again, that just help shorten the time it takes to find those critical 10 to 15 songs that you're going to need. Now, one of the things that we talk about a lot in our training for clinicians is how to track impact. And I'm putting on my advocacy hat a little bit here when I say this, but we really want this to be a part, universally a part of healthcare, right? And in order to do that, we want to see it in care plans. We want to see this adopted and talked about. We want people to ask questions in care plan meetings like, have we tried music yet? Once that becomes commonplace, we'll know that music is being used consistently. And it's a wonderful non-pharmacological intervention. It's not meant to replace traditional medications, but it can certainly work alongside them. And oftentimes you could use them instead of medication. Now, being part of the care plan and part of electronic documentation and records and things like that is a part of that. So again, we strongly advocate for that to be a part of care. So if you're at an organization and you don't see that, it's always okay to suggest, have you considered using music and making it a part of your daily care? And this is one of the forms that we use for tracking impact. It shows the effects of a personalized music playlist in the long term. So you can track changes in weight, medication, dining habits, and things like that, mood. And it goes a long way in creating a breadcrumb trail, if you will, for how music really works as an intervention. We also encourage organizations to look at the data in the aggregate. And again, this is really, we're really advocating for major changes in healthcare when we talk in this way. But if you look at for organizations, when they look at data in the aggregate, they can usually find a lot more people to offer music to, right? Who else in the organization that they haven't worked with might be triggering for off-label use of antipsychotics? Who else might be more isolated and aloof, where music might spark more social engagement? If you look at the data in the aggregate, and we encourage organizations to do this, you can usually find even more people to work with. So what are some of the benefits for caregivers? And I'll be segueing into this for the remainder of the training, or the webinar, excuse me. What are some of the benefits for the people that offer the music? We know now some of the benefits for the participants, but we also know, and it's often overlooked, some of the benefits for caregivers, professional clinicians, and family caregivers as well. We know that for frontline staff, staff burnout is a reality, right? And staff turnover is a reality as a result. Champions come and go in residential care. That's just the way it is. But we also know that integrating music and arts into care can lower levels of stress and decrease burnout, and actually has an effect on staff turnover because they tend to have greater job satisfaction, right? Because they can actually make a connection and they have a little bit more purpose. I've had staff say, it's so hard for us to connect with people that are hard to connect with. And despite our best efforts, sometimes we end up talking over them. I've never forgotten that when they told me that, because that's just a perfect way to explain what's really happening. They're talking over them instead of connecting with them. But music is just one of those vehicles for actually connecting with someone. Now, there are a couple ways to look at this. But it's not just the offering of the music as a way to connect, but also working with the person to find that favorite music is very person-centered too. So there are a lot of ways to connect throughout this process. Now, for family caregivers, you're gonna see more about this in the video I'm about to show, but we do know that it's a great way for family caregivers to get a break, right? And we also know that for most family caregivers, that break is really needed, right? And I'm sure, if you're a family caregiver actively caring for someone with dementia right now, I'm sure you're nodding along. For those of us who have cared for someone with dementia, myself included, it's a tough job, and it's a long job. And it's often very difficult to not just do the job, but to get a break. And music is one of those things that really helps, right? Because the reality is that it's very difficult to provide joy for someone with late stage or advanced dementia. Maybe the taste of a favorite food, or recognizing a family member's voice, or as it happens, the sound of music, the sound of favorite songs. These are ways to bring joy to someone with dementia. And so this is a wonderful tool that caregivers can use just about any time to support their loved one's quality of life and get a break themselves. And as I sort of referred to earlier, there are a couple ways to look at this, but the time it takes to work with someone to find favorites, we find is often the most meaningful part of the process. This is a process we call becoming a music detective. And it's a series essentially of maybe 1 to 2 musical conversations, right? Where you're sampling music and you're asking questions about, what makes them who they are, what's important to them, what songs are important to them. And in terms of a person-centered approach, it really doesn't get more person-directed than, sitting with the person and talking about the music that makes them who they are, right? What a wonderful way to get in touch with a person's humanity, right? Than through music. And that's why we always say this is really the gift that gives twice, because not only are you giving someone a playlist that's going to trigger their cognition and support their activities of daily living throughout the day, but you've also taken the time to really connect with them. And that's why it's such an important tool for caregivers to have, because it's just one of those ways, one of the few ways that you can really connect with a loved one. And you could do it through music. So this is the last video I'm going to show you today. This is our Music and Memory at Home video. This just dives even deeper into some of the benefits for at-home caregivers. So let's take a look.
Personalized music is a profound gift for families at home with their relative with Alzheimer's or dementia. To see their relative come to life. There is a reawakening.
The music program has been a great thing for me and for James. Like a glow, a happiness.
It's a tool to create joy. It's something that both of you can engage in and create a safe and secure moment in time.
Music and memory. It's afforded me a luxury, helping me with my wife. She puts the headphones on, she's more mellow, she's sitting down, she's humming with the songs. It's emotional.
Music and Memory at Home is a valuable tool for caregivers that will enable you to stay at home and function as independently as possible.
Oh, you were hungry.
Fostering independence is the most important part for these families. Not only do I feel fortunate that we have become certified in music and memory and to be able to do it in the center, but be able to offer this experience to caregivers trying to keep an individual in their home rather than placing them in a facility.
You want to take your coat off?
Yeah.
We want them to have the best quality of life that they can.
He's more contented and, like I said, more calm. He'll start a conversation.
Oh yeah, we got here.
He's more aware of his environment.
Most people would prefer to remain in their own home in a familiar environment with things that they know and love around them.
It could be something as simple as a picture on a wall.
Wow, I'm surprised with all these things.
Music and memory is wonderful medicine. Medicine without a pill. In the brain, music can bypass so many different things.
Here, Tommy.
The brain is able to follow commands.
Got it?
Yeah.
The body is able to do things that normally, if dementia, they wouldn't be able to do.
Come on, let's go.
What?
Let's go. We're going this way.
Any caregiver out there who needs a little bit extra help in any way, it's a great tool. The music helps him a lot in public to help calm him down. Sometimes walking is a little funky, but even his walking was great.
Music and memory makes it a lot easier for the caregiver at home with eating, dressing, sleeping, showering.
We're gonna go in the kitchen, okay? Yep, good.
The music is awesome.
Okay, Tata.
I could put him at the table with the earphones on. Music will keep him more engaged, and I can go do stuff around the house.
Families who use the music and memory program are able to get a little break, which gives them more time to attend to their own needs.
Have a seat. With music and memory, I can be more relaxed. I'm just going to clean up some things here, okay? I can do chores around the house and not have to worry about her. She can even sit with me and listen to the music while she's got the headphones on.
What's the song?
To love.
Mm-hmm. Will you still love me tomorrow?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
Mm-hmm. Will you
Yeah.
still love me tomorrow? Shooby-doo, shooby-doo. Before music, it was difficult to leave James alone. You okay? You're comfortable?
Yeah, I'm okay.
But now I know he's okay because he's enjoying the music, right?
Personalized music connects us to that essential sense of our being.
With the music, I think it gives him a self-being that he's contributing to himself. He has more humor now.
What happened? What'd I do?
You feel like he's a person.
The music is really helping her and me and just having a decent relationship.
You are my husband.
Yes, I am your husband.
All right, Elvis.
She took care of me for close to 40 years. Now it's my turn.
Music makes him really more Walter. I mean, Walter emerges when the music goes on. It's made a difference in my life, in his life, in our life.
I hope you enjoy that. I like that last quote. Walter emerges when the music comes on, right? That pretty much says it all. And it's such an amazing process to see someone kind of come out when you do put the music on and to suddenly just have that much more access to themselves. And that's just, again, what makes it such a wonderful gift. And there's a lot of evidence now to support not just using the music and memory program, but just offering favorite music in general. So this was a study that was done in 2020 out of California. This is over 4,100 people with dementia. And these results will astound you. So this is per quarter for people with dementia. A 13% decline in antipsychotic use, a 17% decline in anti-anxiety use, right? Pretty astounding drop. Depressive symptoms down 16%, reported chronic pain down by 17%, and this is the amazing one, distress behaviors reduced by 20%. Now not only is that helpful for that person's quality of life, but it's amazing for people providing care too, because it's often the case, especially in residential care, that situations of distress will compound, often lead to a fall or a fight. So if you can get ahead of it with music, you can usually avoid those episodes entirely. So number of days on medication declined by 30%. And all of this, again, is just from the proactive and consistent application of favorite music playlists targeted to support specific activities during the day. And as Susan mentioned earlier in the presentation, we've been doing this for a long time. We've certified over 5,800 organizations in this process. We're in every state. Amazingly, thanks to state government leaders around the country, 29 states have made music and memory part of policy, which is to say that they either mandate or highly recommend the use of favorite music playlists to support quality of life, right? And many states have really taken that to heart. Wisconsin in 2015, for example, certified every single one of their nursing homes in the state. And Texas certified over 1,000. And believe it or not, Texas dropped its antipsychotic rate by a whopping 58% by doing that. 58% statewide. But just to put that in perspective, we're still only reaching maybe 2 to 3% of the people in residential care, and an even smaller percentage of the people aging in place at home. Millions of Americans aging in place at home with some type of dementia. So we've still got a long way to go, but as we always say, with your help, we can get there. So making that change, how do we make sure this is universally adopted? Um, I hope you've enjoyed some of the tools that we talked about today, some of the concrete ways that you can use music. One of the mission, part of the mission of the Institute, of which Music and Memory is a part, is to create scalable models of music therapy so that we can empower frontline care staff to bring about this change, right? Now, there are only about 10,000 music therapists in the United States at present, board certified music therapists. There are only about 10,000. But again, millions of people in residential care and millions more who would benefit from music engagement and music therapy services. So part of our mission is to create scalable models like Music and Memory so that we can empower healthcare staff and family caregivers to use these tools, to leverage everything that music therapists know to help improve older adult quality of life. And it's never been more important, and it's actually being talked about quite a bit. We're still not seeing change at the level we'd like to, but at least the conversation has started. For example, this piece came out this week. Listening to music after 70 may cut dementia risk by nearly 40%. Maybe you've seen this article float by last week. But it's amazing. If you're always listening to music, it lowers your dementia risk by 39%. Playing musical instruments, reduces the risk by 35%. Yeah, let's hear it for musicians. Music engagement was linked to higher overall cognitive and episodic memory scores, right? And basically it supports music as a simple, non-pharmacological, lifestyle-based intervention for supporting brain health. Pretty amazing. And so I'm glad to see we're seeing more and more research like this coming out, and people being more aware that music is something that you can use as a part of dementia care. And this economic analysis was even made us happy to see as well. So this is one of the first studies that focuses on return on investment. You know, we've known for a long time, anecdotally, that there is a business case for music therapy. But finally, thanks to this study from NeuroArts Blueprint Initiative, this is back in June, they actually took a look at ROI. And they found that for every dollar spent on music engagement, the return on investment is $2.40. So that's less important for family caregivers at home, but really important for people in residential care and the people who care for them, because it really makes the case for adding even more music engagement to dementia care. And part of the reason this is happening is because, as you saw from the studies, you see less distress behavior, less reported chronic pain, less need for medication, right? And a way to reach people and to connect with them and to increase their mood and to reduce agitation and anxiety. All this has a major downstream impact on the services that they receive. Because you're giving them all of these different boosts in all of these different areas, the risk of hospitalization goes down. The time they spend in rehab goes down. And with that, all of these downstream costs go down too. So it's really amazing to see these conversations starting to happen. It's wonderful to see that people are talking about the business case for music engagement, because often it's something that just gets tacked on into activities departments, you know. As much as a lot of music engagement does naturally flow towards activities or recreation and senior care, it really is a nursing intervention and a way to improve quality of life with a minimal invasion. Now, of course, if you're interested in doing this process, we have a free guide available. Just go to musicandmemory.org/playlist. And of course, contact us anytime if you have questions about our process. Just to recap, you know, you're sitting with that person and you're spending time together, you're trying to connect through music, and you're trying to find 10 to 15 songs from their formative years, roughly ages 12 to 25. and you're trying to find 10 to 15 songs that trigger memories, right? Or get them talking about a memory, or you're just getting them to smile and enjoy the music, maybe talk a little bit about what's going on with them. And then to think about how you can use that music proactively throughout the day to support their quality of life. If they need support in the morning, getting toileting or showering, whatever the case may be, you can use the music proactively before you do those things together, and it will help them through that process. If they have a planned medical appointment every week, you can play the music before, about 30 minutes before, to the same effect. For someone who's transitioning between environments, you could do it then too. Or if someone usually sundowns at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, if you have it every day that they listen to the music at 3:30, you can usually avoid that episode entirely. And again, if you have any questions at all about any of this process, we're always happy to speak with folks using personalized music and to share ideas and talk about what works and what doesn't. I'm just about out of time. So with that, we'll open it up to hopefully a quick Q&A. Thanks to Susan and everyone else from Alzheimer's Foundation of America for having us here today. Thanks, everybody.
Well, thank you, Justin. That was tremendous. And we do have a lot of excellent questions. And for those of you who had to sign on a bit late, Justin is very graciously providing everyone with a copy of the presentation. So don't worry about if you missed the beginning of it. We also have a comment first. Just a lovely comment saying about Henry, how touching it was when the music woke him up. And I think we all feel the same about that. It's such a tremendous moment. But we have also a very good question. How does one ascertain what type of music to play for a person who cannot currently communicate?
Great question. So, and thank you for sharing that. So, depending on where someone is in the aging process, right? They may be able to respond to the music verbally. They may, and reactions include tapping fingers, singing along, talking about a memory. But this, depending on where someone is in the aging process, this could take anywhere between, it could be instantaneous, or it could take 45 minutes for the person's cognition to catch up with what's happening. So that's why we always say, don't be afraid to play the same song twice if you think you're onto something. But it's often the case that if you're working with someone with moderate to advanced dementia, they won't be able to respond at all, right? And to your question, what do you do when they can't respond? What do you do when they can't say, I like that, I don't like that? Well, it is sometimes the case that you'll know they'll have their record collection lying around, or maybe you'll already know a genre of music that they loved, and you can start there. But we always suggest working with family primarily and asking questions of the family about music that they loved the most when they were a teenager. Another way to do it is to work backwards from their birthday, right, to the point where they're 15. So my dad was born in 1935, for example. I'm working with my dad right now with music. And so we're focusing on music from when he was 15, which is 1950. And I happen to know all of my dad's favorites, but if you didn't, you could play maybe the top Billboard hits from that year. Hopefully you'll know a genre and you could just focus in on a genre. But the idea is to try and narrow it down as much. And again, all of this as you can. And again, this is all part of solving what we call the musical favorites mystery. But certainly if you don't have any background information on the person, that's where I would start. I would just look at where they're from. You could look at also if English is not their first language. When we were considering this for my grandfather, who's from Poland, we were talking about music from 1915 in Krakow, right? Which, by the way, is very underrepresented on Spotify. But if sometimes you have to think about it that way. When were they 15? Where were they 15? Maybe you could find out what radio stations they were listening to. I was working with someone last week who was 15 years old in 1936 in the Bronx, right? That's all I knew. But that was enough because I was able to really look at some of the popular radio shows, look at all the clubs from that time. And of course, I know a lot of the major names from that period of time, all the crooners, Frank Sinatra, right, things like that. Um, and so it was a little easier, but those are some of the ways that you can get through it. And I hope that's helpful. And
I'm sure it will be. Thank you. And now a practical question. First of all, does it have to be headphones to get a good response in your experience? Do you tend to get better results? Or can you simply play the music out of speakers? And would you have a suggestion for the best type of headphones for people with dementia? Do some bother them and others are more comfortable?
Great questions. So it's often the case that someone will go into distress with wired headphones. So if that's the case, again, you don't have to use headphones, but we do advocate for over-ear headphones because they tend to be the most immersive, right? You really, the music is just right there. And it's a really good way to minimize distractions too. But if someone, and so again, over-ear headphones, headphones that cover the entire ear, like the ones I'm wearing now, you don't want to wear earbuds, right? Because they'll interfere with hearing aids. And the same is true for headphones that don't cover the ear entirely. You really got to watch out for feedback from the hearing aids. So there are a lot of affordable models. If you want to go super cheap, KOSS, KOSS, they're UR series. I think they're up to UR12. They're pretty good. They're about $8. They come with a lifetime guarantee, and they rarely break. So that's a good option. You can try Bluetooth also, but be warned that those tend to be heavier and ear fatigue sets in pretty quickly. The band also tends to be tighter around the ear. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but it can get very painful. And if someone can't tell you that they're in pain, you want to, avoid that. If you don't have headphones, of course, you can still do this process with a speaker. What we would recommend is during listening sessions, just face the person away from wherever any kind of noise or distraction is coming from, or find a quiet space, and just try and minimize distractions as much as possible. It certainly will yield the same results, although again, it's slightly less immersive.
Okay, very good. And can you talk a little bit about listening to music for people who are agitated and have dementia? Is it better to introduce it, as you mentioned, to be proactive ahead of possible incidents?
That's our whole thing, is to try and get ahead of the distress. And generally speaking, there is usually a window of opportunity where if you offer the music, you can get ahead of that episode and almost always avoid that episode entirely. Music for anxiety is a wonderful tool, and it's almost always effective if you have the right music. That's not to say that you can't apply it after the fact. Music, of course, is relaxing to all of us, especially if their favorites happen to be relaxing favorites. But that's a different approach. That's listening to music just for relaxation at that point. Whereas if you do it beforehand, you're stimulating their cognition, and that's facilitating the effect. That's allowing them to get through the anxiety.
Okay, and another question, which is an interesting one, about if the person is enjoying listening to the music and doing a particular activity, and the caregiver needs to transition them to the next needed activity, is there a way to kind of transition them out of doing the first activity without distressing them and pulling them away from where they are and from that musical moment?
Sure. Well, transitioning between activities, yeah, those can be difficult. If someone's really locked into something, it can be overwhelming for them to then have to get up dramatically and do that. We prefer to go very slowly in those moments. If you're already playing the music and it's supporting activity A, you can turn the music down, you can pause it and just communicate with them, maybe 5 minutes in advance. Okay, now we're going to go and do this. Okay, it's time to take a bathroom break or something like that. And you can usually walk them through those moments with support. Modeling often helps. If you're introducing the music, if you want to model it on yourself first, you can put the headphones on yourself and maybe cup their ears with your hands to show them that you're going to give the music to them. All of this helps to sort of transition in and out of use of the music, but definitely take it slow and look for cues and signs of distress, I would say.
Okay, and this is an interesting question. Is there a danger of overusing the process? Will the results drop if you use, say, too much of a good thing? Do the results get diluted after a while?
Another good question. I actually thought you were going to ask, does the music ever have a negative effect? We get that question a lot too. So generally speaking, the more you use the music, the more you maximize the effect. And I know that can be counterintuitive. You might think that they would be bored of it, but generally speaking, that has not been the case. And the more consistently you apply the music, even several times a day, if you have a playlist of at least 15 to 20 songs, it won't grow stale. With that said, we do advocate that you check in quarterly with each playlist and try to refresh it by repeating the process. If you do that, you can continue to use the music as often as you deem necessary. The pros definitely outweigh the cons. And sometimes it's the case that you'll trigger a bad memory. You know, we've seen that a lot, not a lot, but sometimes with people working with people. But what we found is that even though in the short term, you should definitely stop the music in the short term if you trigger a bad memory or if you trigger distress. But we found that in the long term, it can be cathartic and it helps the person to talk through those moments and why that music was tough for them. And it usually ends up being therapeutic in that way too, and helps them to heal by talking about the memory. So it ends up being positive in the long run.
Okay, we're coming to the close, but one last question. Have you found that music has been successful keeping people calm at night so they sleep and they don't tend to wander?
Yes, music can be used to help someone sleep either throughout the day or at night, and it can be useful for agitational wandering and things like that. But I would say it's always good first to really understand what's going on with someone if they're not able to sleep. You know, music is a wonderful tool for supporting sleep. It helps someone, you know, get through the physical process of slowing down their heart and respiratory rate and things like that. But if there are other things countering it, you as a caregiver need to understand what they are. If they're in severe pain, music is not going to keep them asleep. And that's always something I like to offer as a disclaimer.
Okay. Thank you so much, Justin. We've come to the end of our time for today, and we really appreciate this wonderful, informative way of looking at music and the important part of it in our everyday lives and for caregiving. Also, thank you to everyone who attended today. I'll be sending an email in a few days with all the information I mentioned. Before we end, I want to encourage you to sign up for our next Care Connection webinar on Thursday, December 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Our guest speaker will be Dr. Bijan Najafi. Dr. Najafi is a full professor of surgery at UCLA, specializing in digital health and biotechnologies. Dr. Najafi is going to address how digital health innovations, ranging from wearables to artificial intelligence, are transforming the way we age by helping people stay healthier and more independent, and why we shouldn't be afraid of these futuristic devices. I hope you'll be able to join us. Take care, everyone, until the next time, and thank you again, Justin.